Can you tell me more about your craft? About demonology?
And why's that? Thinking about a career change?
I'm just curious.
Are you? I hope you do realize that demonology isn't a forbidden school for no reason. Most people who mess with it die. But sure, if you have questions, ask.
Let's start with the basics. What's the core principle of demonology?
It's simple. You study demons and their powers, and bind them to your will. And thus you gain access to their powers. Take a devourer. Once you've studied and subdued her to your will, you can access her strength. And I'm not talking about merely summoning her. You can channel her powers.
How is that supposed to work? Channeling their powers?
Hard to describe. Just imagine that the demon becomes a part of you. You connect it with your magic, so to speak. And when needed, you can call on it to help you. It's not just the power that comes with it. It's also the feeling. Channeling the essence of a Zarek Nar, a tribe-eater. It's a feeling that compares to nothing else in this world. You can't understand it till you've done it.
So, in order to bind them, you need to beat them in battle, correct?
Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, but yeah. In a nutshell, that's it.
And I'm guessing that's what makes it so dangerous?
Among other things, yes. What can also happen is that your body simply can't handle a demon's unleashed essence. It can cause a brain rupture similar to what these masks the Purity use. And, to be honest, that happens to 8 out of 10 students of demonology. They subdue a demon, get excited, and let all their energy rush in at once. As a result, their brains explode like a watermelon hit with a warhammer.
So, why exactly is demonology forbidden?
Because it's dangerous. And because demonologists can be extremely powerful. More than some members of the ruling caste would like to see.
Is there a limit to how many demons you can bind?
No. If there were, I wouldn't still be traveling after all this time.
Interesting. Thanks for the insight.
Sure. Huh?
I'm still wondering what made you leave Kalea and travel the world to study demonology.
You're not letting this one go, are you? Alright, if your life depends on it, I'll tell you. To make it short, I grew up in the slums of Kalea. A shithole if ever there was one. Just imagine an entire quarter made up of half-ruined shacks with the smell of shit and piss everywhere. And way too many people. Then add the tropical heat to it and you've got the place I grew up in. My father had left right after I was born. My mother is what you call a day laborer. Though the days when she wasn't laboring outweighed the ones when she did. Whatever job there was, she took it. Even if it was cleaning the shit out of Kalayan canals. She worked hard, but it just wasn't enough. We lived in a windowless room and I shared a bed with my mother for the first 14 years of my life. Long story short, after a while my mother simply couldn't cover the expenses anymore. The rent for our room went up and jobs became less and less. Since the mage wars in Northander also affected the trade in Kalea. So my mother looked for someone to help her out. And found one. A man named Creo. He was a loan shark who had it all. A stupid name and a shady beard. 2 lackeys who followed him wherever he went. And above all, a complete lack of what other people would call decency.
I think I can see where this is going.
Sure you can. It's not the most unique of stories, is it? To cut to the chase, 1 year later we were in massive debt. Creo suggested my mother another way of making up for it. You can fill in the blanks. I was just too weak. Over and over this fucking bastard came. Had my mother tell me to go for a walk. And every time I had no choice but to obey. Do you have any idea how it feels, Tahar? To be that powerless? I remember one day I looked in the mirror and realized how much I hated the boy I saw. I hated his body with all its frail bones, his small arms, his bloodshot wet eyes. And that's when I decided to change things. So the next time he came, I fought back.
How did that go?
What do you think? He beat me up. It was the same next time and the time after that. At first he found it funny, but after the fourth time he threatened to kill me. The only thing that stopped him from doing it is because my mother begged him to. And I had only made it worse. On my 14th name day I left home and joined up with the Chilean sand prowlers. My mother begged me not to go, but I just couldn't. Standing there and watching this fucking bastard walk into our room again and again whenever he felt like it, I just couldn't. Dying would have been better than staying. The way I figured it was that if I earned enough money to pay Mother's debts, Korea would leave her alone. Once I was strong enough, I'd come back, wait for him to show up again, and then, well, you can imagine the rest.
I think I can. So who were these sand prowlers?
A group of mercenaries. They took me in and trained me. And even though they were skeptical at first, they quickly realized that my determination made up for what my body was lacking. When I was 16 and I discovered my magic, one of their leaders made me his apprentice. The arcane universities are a shithole made up of boy-loving old geezers who care more about how you wear your hair than about your magic. I'll tell you the real thing. And that she did.
What about your plan to pay your mother's debts? Did that work out?
Well, I thought so at first, but we'll get there.
What was it like to work with the sand prowlers?
Well, if you were hoping for stories of sex, adventure, and intrigue, I have to disappoint you. Most of it was nasty stuff. Fighting in wars which you knew were wrong, beating up people who were practically helpless. But then again, the Chilean Guard was no better than that. It was a case of pick your poison.
Was that sand prowler mage also who introduced you to demonology?
What? No, she was a mediocre mage at best. The most powerful thing she could do was lighting someone's hair on fire. Though of course she didn't see it that way. After 1 year I was already stronger than her, and I started my own studies.
So did you ever return to your mother?
Of course, on my 18th name day. I had wanted to return earlier, but a contract had me kept overseas for a lot longer than I had expected. Sorry. It's strange to talk about it.
What happened?
My mother. She was gone. Her room had been cleared out, and the neighbors told me she passed away unexpectedly just 3 weeks before I arrived. Her heart just stopped beating.
I'm sorry.
Why? It was a natural death. She was old when she gave birth to me, and the life on the Chilean streets isn't forgiving. In other words, it was bound to happen. I went into the room and looked for our stash. A small casket under the floorboards. I found it, opened it, and saw all the money I'd sent her over the years.
So...
She never used it to pay Creo as I instructed her. I have no idea why, but my best guess is that she thought it was mine since I earned it. She was that kind of person, you know? No matter how hard fate punched her in the face, she clung on to her ideals. Always did what was right rather than what was good for herself. And look what she got in return.
Did you ever visit her grave?
I did, but it was a mass grave. Dozens of corpses, all piled onto each other, and some earth shoveled on top of it. I threw up when I saw it, and never came back after that.
What about Creo?
Well, as you can imagine, I went to look for him. Right after I was able to think straight again. But he was gone.
Where?
I don't know. I asked everywhere and everyone who could know, and they either didn't or gave me different information. After a while, I gave up.
Why?
Because people like Creo are just a reality we have to deal with. I could have killed him, but what good would it have done? My mother was dead, and no amount of bloodshed and gut tearing could have changed that. The world doesn't give a fuck about your ideals, Tahar. About doing the right thing. That's just the shit we tell ourselves to help us sleep at night. You eat or you get eaten. It's that simple. I wasn't strong enough when I should have been. And that's why I couldn't help her. That will never happen again.
I guess you're right.
I am. To wrap up the story, I enrolled at the university from the money my mother saved for me. Turned out the Sand Prowler mage was wrong. There were some boy-loving professors, but they knew their shit. studied and practiced until there was nothing left to study. Then I found out about demonology and the power in it. I quit university, and I've been traveling ever since, taking jobs as a mercenary here and there, but above all, improving my skills. My last stop was Bar Gagor to summon a devourer.
And what are you after? In the long run?
I don't know. I'll find out when I get there.
Huh. Interesting story. Thanks for your trust, Ulam.
Sure. Hope you're happy.